Network service of the NTA.
You are welcome to yet another edition of the Sports Parliament. My name is Abdurrahman Ibn Muhammad, enjoying my privilege to be acting speaker for a second time. Just like last week, Mr. Speaker is not yet back from his trip, and so I am holding forth for him. But Mr. Speaker is going to be with us as we discuss some very important trending issues in the Nigerian sporting world. The issues are large. Easily, soccer fans in this country, and by soccer fans, I mean generally sports fans, because there is no single Nigerian that does not want the Super Eagles to be at the World Cup. And the defining moments are drawing closer and closer by the day in the deal that we have to do with Ghana. And of course, we also had during the week the name LMC reverberating through the press. Why the LMC? A Supreme Court judgment had been given over a long lingering matter, and the name of LMC came in. We are going to be examining why the name of LMC came in, and of course, we are in no position to tamper with their lordships. Their opinions are deemed to be final. But we wonder how our reportage has been going on these days. And finally, we also have the issue of our dear Blessing Okagbare. The problems she ran into last year at the Tokyo Olympics are far from over. In fact, they are becoming much more and more defining. It doesn't smell nice at all. These are the issues that we will be tackling in this edition of the Sports Parliament. When we come back from our very first break, we shall meet all of those that are present at today's sitting. Stay with us.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, the Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
Thank you. Welcome back. Now we shall meet our guests as I promised earlier. Let me start with our number one parliamentarian, of course, the regular speaker, the full-time speaker of the Sports Parliament, Chief Segun Odegbami, who is still out of this country, but we're hoping to have him back very soon. Mr. Speaker, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Abdurrahman. You are doing a fantastic job. Much better than I could ever have done. You see, that's why you are a pro. Well done, my brother.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's why you are also a footballer. Now, the next guest that we have, the next parliamentarian present, is my very own brother. We call him here the Maverick. Onome? Onome, let's hear you. It appears Onome has briefly disappeared from the radar of our producer, but I'm sure we'll fish him back. Then, let us go outside this country again, since we got Mr. Speaker from outside of Nigeria. another parliamentarian, this time from the city of Glasgow in Scotland, Satish Shekhar. Satish, welcome.
Thank you, Abdul Rahman. I'm actually in Glasgow, not from Glasgow. I tend to go all over the place. So this time it's Glasgow, next time it will probably be in Wales. But it's
Well,
a pleasure
Satish,
to be here again.
Satish, thank you for that grammatical correction in English. You are not from Glasgow, but you are in Glasgow today. Just like some time ago we talked to you, you were in Wales. You are a globe-trotting journalist. We accept. Then, of course, we have Onome. Is he around with us?
I am here. Can you hear me, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, I can hear you, but I want to see you. Yes, I can see you. And what you are spotting.
Yes.
Well, well, well.
Is we're initiating muscles. We're about 60% done. Very soon we'll have six pack.
Installing
Good
muscles.
to be on set tonight. Yes.
What,
Initiating
Onome,
muscles.
what
We're
next
installing
are
it.
you going to be doing? What next are you going to be telling us? We'll be watching you closely. I'm not sure we have any other guests around. Mr. Producer has not told me so yet. So we got to have to make do with Onome, Chief Shegun Odegbami, the Speaker, and Satish, our globe-trotting parliamentarian, who is today in Glasgow. Mr. Speaker, let me yield the field for you first. Let's take the Nigeria-Ghana showdown that is moving in on us very, very fast. It is an all-must-win affair. No chance for error, no margin of error. How do you think we are going about this so far?
The Ghanaian ambassador to Nigeria is my very good friend, Abdul Rashid Bawa. On the day that the draws were made and Nigeria and Ghana were to meet, that was during AFCON 2021. And, following the performances of both teams in AFCON, on paper, everybody, in fact, 90% of people would say, the Super Eagles have the edge. We played better, we had better players, although we didn't go far in the championship, but everybody at the time thought that the Super Eagles actually could get to the finals. Whereas Ghana played so poorly, probably their worst performance in AFCON ever. So what most people will feel is that the Eagles will just have a jolly good ride. But Abdul Rashid Bawa, the ambassador, just called me. Immediately he heard the draws. And he said, Shegun, please tell your Nigerians that yes, Ghana does not have a good team now. But anytime we play Ghana, it is a completely new match. You cannot use any other factor or any other consideration beyond the fact that their rivalry brings out the very best in both teams. So Nigerians, you can only take Ghana for granted at your own peril. That's what he was saying. And that's the nature of that match. The Black Stars versus the Super Eagles, World War IV, because we are experiencing World War III right now.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Thanks for that input about Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa, the Ghanaian High Commissioner to Nigeria, who I must say the man is displaying his diplomatic skills very well. He was at the office of the Honorable Minister for Sports, Chief Sunday Dare, to parley over the match. And I think that is a bit of confidence building. And we shall see how far that goes. Now, Satish, let me hear what you will say about this. You are, in all likelihood, an uninterested observer. You are watching Nigeria play Ghana, and Chief Odegbami has just given us the fact that anytime Nigeria plays Ghana, it's a different ball game. Since you are in Glasgow, let me give you another example that I think you would be more familiar with. It's almost like a Glasgow Rangers against Celtic. Give us your take.
Well, I'd have to agree with what Chief Shegun Odigbami has said. It's always a big, big match when Ghana and Nigeria play anywhere. They have a historic rivalry which is even older than the independence of both countries. So it is it is something you would expect to see a big incentive on both teams. They don't want to lose. They will want to go through. Going to the World Cup is a big deal, but beating Ghana, beating Nigeria, or Nigeria beating Ghana is also a very big thing. And as Chief Odigbami was saying, the performance in the Africa Cup of Nations, there's no question Nigeria were better than Ghana. Absolutely no question about it. But it means absolutely nothing now because both sides didn't win the Africa Cup of Nations and both sides want to go to the World Cup, but they also want to beat each other. So I wouldn't read anything into the form book. You can tear it up. It is going to be a case of who wants to win it more and who is but also who is less afraid of losing because that is going to be a big thing. If you are too afraid to lose, that's what's going to happen to you.
Very well. One hopes that the handlers of both teams, and for our own sake, the handlers of the Super Eagles are listening to Satis. That makes a lot of sense. Onome, leading up to this match, a lot of issues have been thrown up, mainly about the ground where the first leg is going to be played. The Ghanaians had first proposed to FIFA and CAF that the match would take place at the Cape Coast Stadium, and it turned out that the stadium, the pitch had been, is in a very bad state. They tried their best to make it work. It didn't work. Eventually, more correspondences followed, and finally, we hear the footballing authorities of the continent and FIFA have agreed that the match be shifted to Kumasi at the Baba Yara Stadium. Don't you think that this is maybe a game of, mind games that are being played by the Ghanaian football authorities?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I personally think that the rivalry that we talk about has to do with when both teams had very good players, when we had players that could match each other for quality, and we would now sit on the fence. If Ghana likes, they should take this match to Morocco. If they like, they should take it to Cape Verde. I think we'll beat them soundly home and away. And I'm not being overconfident. I am saying what I'm saying because we see what the Ghanaians play week in, week out, and we see what the Nigerians play week in, week out. Before you told me to speak, Alex Iwobi just scored for the 10-man Everton team against Newcastle. That is a moral booster for his game. Victor Osimhen is on fire. Moses Simon is on fire. Leeds is trying to sign him. We have players that are playing very well at the moment, including, what's his name, Leon Balogun Rangers, who scored last week. So we should base these players and these games based on current form and not on what happened during the era of Chief Shego Digbami, where if they want to play Ghana, the entire Surulere would gather to say that we will die here today. That's no longer the case. I look at the Ghanaian team. Who wants to play for that team? They are calling back Suli Muntari. Do you remember Suleiman Muntari? They're calling him back. Who are they getting as chief coach? Chris Hughton, that's been relegating teams in the Premiership. I mean, we should not just let these boys are hungry to go to the World Cup. We will see what will happen that first leg. But I'm very, very confident that Nigeria will go through and will beat Ghana home anyway.
Well, Chief Adegbami, the fact that, as Onome has stated, the Ghanaians under Chris Hughton have not so far released their squad list. Does that tally with what Onome is saying, that they probably are still...
They don't have squads to release, Mr. Speaker. They don't have squads.
To put on Chief Odegbami.
Well, well, I can look. I don't know what to say to Onome. I wish I could just share his enthusiasm, and I wish I could share his confidence. Yes, deep down, we have a better team. I know we have a better team. We have better players. We have better at this point in time. If you look man for man, and the records, we are on top. But just as Abdul Rashid said, there has never been one match against Ghana that was easy. Never. And it is not about how you play on the field. It is a mind game. You also you stated it. It's a mind game. And it depends on who wants it badly the most between the two teams. That's how it usually turns out to be. Even at a time when Ghana had a good squad and they took things for granted, we went to Ghana there and defeated them under Onigmide. And I'm not just talking history. I'm talking the things that have been happening since before independence, as Sachi said, and it is still happening up to today. But this time around, for some reason, most of us Nigerians are more confident than not that, well, with the players that we have, I think we have the edge, and that should show and sustain on the field of play.
Well, I'm sure a lot of Nigerians would be hoping that the game you mentioned when the Eagles played under Chief Onigbinde in Accra with Chibuzo Ehilegu scoring the 2 goals that won the match for Nigeria, maybe they will be praying and hoping that the Eagles deliver such a performance. Well, a lot of time for them to trash it out. Just to add that the Honorable Minister for Sports, Chief Sunday Dare, has actually been up and running, inspecting the National Stadium, the Chief Moshood Abiola Stadium, as it is officially known in Abuja. And I think they are doing a very good job of it. New scoreboards have been installed. The grass is being trimmed regularly. Communication gadgets have been put out there. And all this is to, upgrade the status of the stadium to actually what it probably was meant for at the beginning, where journalists from all over the world can come. There is internet availability, there is power, and they can do their stuff and send their reports. I guess that's what they are trying to do to get the stadium back to that level. Chief, do you think, well, maybe my mind is racing ahead. Do you think Nigeria will be able to sustain the usage of the MK Abiola Stadium when given the fact that a lot of resources are now being pumped in? The minister did confirm that the president did, authorize the release of quite a huge amount of resources to effect these changes. If we do that, do we go back to our old mismanaging this?
Well, I have personal experience working, in that stadium for over a year. I had my office in that stadium for over a year. And I must admit that, look, to maintain such a stadium is very, very expensive. And we have not learned, because you don't maintain such a stadium from resources from government. Government just put in money there, and then they are just, the government will get tired. And that's why we keep talking about, getting the private sector to come and be a part of it. And we have to take our lesson from is Amsterdam Arena in Amsterdam. That's the home ground of Ajax Football Club. If you go there, you will learn the art of maintaining a stadium, funding the maintenance of a stadium. That stadium hosts Ajax Football Club once in 2 weeks. Once in 2 weeks. They spend 4 hours hosting them. That's about all that Ajax Football Club does on that field. 4 hours every 2 weeks. But that stadium runs 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't sleep. So what goes on there? You must go there to learn how to engage a stadium so that it can fetch for you all the money you need to be able to maintain it. MK Abiola Stadium in Abuja is a stadium that cannot be maintained with government funds. We need some massive re-engineering of that place to start to attract those things that would make maintenance possible. Otherwise, within the next few years, we are back again to square one.
Well, that is food for thought, Mr. Speaker. And if I should add, that is reasonable food for thought. Government certainly will get tired. And even the good-natured minister's, invitation to business moguls to come and help, that initiative will also become moribund because they will also become tired. I think you have thrown a kite, and let's hope that the powers that be will look at this kite properly and maybe do something about how to maintain our stadia. Oneme, do you buy into this?
Well, Mr. Speaker has said it all. What I would like to say regarding the stadium maintenance is the fact that although Alhaji Aliko Dangote had helped us to renovate it, I think I was keen to what Mr. Speaker said about us trying to take a cue from the Ajax arena in Amsterdam. The National Stadium in Abuja is in a very, very, very good location. It has a very good, serene environment. It's a place where business owners should be encouraged to come and do business. A place where people can actually go to have things to do, spend money, where funds can be generated if properly run to keep that place up and running. So I really want to key into it. But I don't like it when Mr. Speaker says this thing on national TV. It's one kind. The minister is his friend. Is it not just to carry your phone, send a WhatsApp message, or call him and say, oh boy, this stadium, see how to do them, see how to do them. And the man will say, yes, sir, chief, we will do it. You know, so saying it on national TV, Mr. Speaker, please send him that WhatsApp message. Let's see.
Onome, don't say what you don't know.
I go fear cow, fear and shit. I'm sorry, sir.
Onome, don't say what you don't know.
Apologies,
I'm sure
Mr. Speaker.
the minister has had the chief. And we will keep on prodding. As journalists, we'll keep on reminding. It's our duty to do that. We will now go for a second break. When we come back, we shall be dealing with the issue of how the name of LMC came to be trending in the media last week.
And there's the start. And get promises to Shara. Winds up that left hand.
Archbishop of basketball, goal! He hung on that net like a stalk up a tree.
NTA Sports 24 brings you all sports, all time and all day. Tune in to watch NTA Sports 24 on Star Times Channel 270, StarSat on Channel 434, and Free TV on Channel 731. NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive.
Welcome back. Like I said before we went on break, the name LMC, League Management Company, that is synonymous with the body that runs the Nigerian Premier Football League, the top flight league in Nigeria. Last week, the Supreme Court passed a judgment debt in a case that was involving the predecessor of the LMC, that is the Nigerian Premier League Limited. And that case had been lingering for about 13 years or thereabouts. It had gone from the lower court, a high court, a federal high court, to the Court of Appeal, and finally the Supreme Court judges, the wisest judges in the land, weighed in on the matter. And suddenly, high-end reports came up with headlines saying the LMC is fraudulent. Supreme Court says the LMC is fraudulent. But looking at the body of the judgment, a lot of legal minds, a lot of sound sporting minds tend to think that, what is wrong with these reporters? Why are they casting such headlines? Let's examine what that is. Mr. Speaker.
Well, the truth is, I didn't even know about the case until after a media house carried screaming headlines about LMC's complicity in that matter. But I also promoted it just like that for tonight's show. But unfortunately, since then, I have read the judgment. I have read interpretations by some of our friends and colleagues, and I find that, and of course, Sheikh Diku has sent me tons and tons of documents. And I find that, look, it is not even appropriate for us to discuss LMC today because they were not even a matter. They were not an issue, in that matter, really. Although at the very end, in that judgment, LMC was mentioned, and they were actually supposed to pay, along with First Bank, I think the legal fees of the complainants or something like that. That was where the LMC issue came in. But when you look at the body of that report, just as you said, the NFL that was supposed not to exist anymore, that the court said should be wound up, was not wound up. And for a brief period, the NFL was actually still doing business. And the NFL was succeeded by the LMC. So it was because they were having that business and they said they should wind up and they didn't, it now appeared as if there was some kind of fraud. But at the end of the day, I sit here confidently to say, well, there is nothing like fraud in that issue. And the LMC was not really involved per se in it. And it is not something we should even examine. The judgment itself was so confusing that I have been trying to make sense of it up till now. It is only for legal minds, not for ordinary lay people like us.
Very well. Onome, you laughed when I mentioned this issue.
Well, for me, I will call it a gidigbogo of transfer of aggression. That's what I will call it, transferring the sin of someone's grandfather to a child that is not yet born. I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer, but reading the judgment, like Mr. Speaker rightly said, I think it has more confusion in it than giving us solutions. So I honestly say that for me is a no-brainer. It's not an issue at all. The LMC, as it were, started off on its own, had no affiliation that I can tie to the Nigerian Football League, which was asked to be dissolved. Be that as it may, it is also good to put these things into proper perspective and for us to understand that when such issues happens, it is not for us that are not legal-minded people to come and draw conclusions. But from the little I understand with the case, is like transferring aggression from grandpa to a child that is not yet born.
Well, transfer of aggression, I like to put it as inherited liability. But my major concern here is, like I said, our brothers in the field of journalism, when we cast headlines, we should be mindful of making sure, because a headline is supposed to be so catchy that it leads you to the kernel of a given story, not to mislead. Those screaming headlines, we are not doing justice, like you have stated, transfer of aggression. For whatever reason, we should, when we dance in the public, try to dance as neatly as possible. Now, Satish, you have been looking on to us discussing this matter of LMC. LMC is a company that runs our Premier Football League, and the predecessor to that, like Shegun Odegbami did say, there is a Nigerian Football League Limited. They were involved. That company was involved in a judicial matter, and judgment was given. But some of my colleagues did what they did. What's your take here, Satish?
Listening to what Shagan and Onome was saying, it sounds like the judgment is very, very confusing. And that never works. For me, it's a simple case. I could give you an example in Britain. I'm dealing with a case here, and the judge seems to have got 6 out of the first 9 sections of a particular law wrong. But this has not been explained to the public. And when you don't explain it to the public, they get an impression that something other than what has happened. And that may well be what's going on here. So, what I would say is, I would like to see the Nigerian journalists examine this judgment, take the time to examine it, go back, look at all the relevant information, and then inform all your viewers in a manner that they can understand properly what has happened, how it happened, and what you can do to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I would like to see the judgment before I make any sort of final decision on it.
Very well, like I did say that the Supreme Court is the apex court in this land. Their judgments are deemed to be final. They are the wisest judges of our land, and we cannot question them. But let us just make it very clear. Misleading headlines don't, protect the integrity of even the journalist casting it, not to talk of the subject
Absolutely.
that is being spoken about. We rest that matter here. We will go for our last break now. After this last break, we are going to consider the very unfortunate case of our damsel Blessing Okagbare.
NTE Sports 24, where sports thrive.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, the Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
Are we back?
Yes, Abdurrahman, go on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for staying with us. Now, like I did say, we are going to be speaking about the travails of Blessing Okagbare. Certainly, alongside the likes of Chioma Ajunwa, the likes of Modupe Oshukoya, the likes of Ethel Jacks, and you can count so many Amazons here, Blessing stands among the greatest of Nigerian women, not only in athletics, but in all walks of life. She is an achiever. But just as her career was tottering towards a glorious end, at the age of 33, she is slammed with a 10-year ban for doping offenses that the authorities in the United States, supported, of course, by authorities in war athletics, have accepted as true. They slammed charges on her, and the charges kind of stuck like a leech. And it does seem that there is not going to be a glorious end for Blessing anymore, Mr. Speaker.
Well, that's a very, very sad chapter in the history of Nigerian sports and in our story as well. Because just as you said, Blessing stands tall. She was one whose career has been impeccable from the word go. And for some reason, I've had experiences with, athletes and all these doping things and so on and so forth. So I thought that with Blessing, we should not have been caught. Her case is so bad. It is the advertisement is so negative that we must this time learn lessons. And those lessons are not just to be verbalized. Those lessons are to be passed down to generations of athletes that are coming up, because this is just not good for the country. If you mention some of our topmost athletes, somehow you will find that there are these, taints of scandal, this doping scandal around them. Even my own Choma Ajunwa, see how we fought in our own case. Happened to Charity Okpara. See, she couldn't even fight. She was so ignorant about the whole thing. See, even Mary Onyali herself, the ambassador, she at the very tail end, ended up in some kind of small issues about doping. Doping is something that we must eliminate by all means. We have the natural gifts. If you see how Americans and Jamaicans are singing the potentials of Nigerian athletes without doping, we shouldn't even venture to go into all of those things. But for some reason, I don't know why we do it. This Blessings case is particularly painful. And from the way things are going, we haven't even heard the last of it, because in her own case, it's not even here in Nigeria. It's not local. It is out there in America, and they are going to go the whole hog to make sure that, she's penalized. She's African. She's a success story. And this world is not designed so that we Black Africans should succeed anyway. So once they see us, once they get us like that, they release the full hammer or not. So this case is very bad. Nigeria must learn from this. Nigeria must do things correctly. We have done so many things badly in the past, in handling this case. We haven't been truly professional. That is my own point of view. Although so many people will feel differently about it, but we haven't taken it seriously enough in Nigeria to ward off situations such as this.
Well, certainly the American authorities will brook none of that. If they could deal with their own very star, Marion Jones, who would they not be able to deal with? Onome? Onome? Well, if you're not there, I think let's welcome Waidi. Waidi, you've been following us. You have been a sporting star yourself. You went through the ranks and exited gloriously. This is one of your colleagues, I should say, who has now run into this kind of problem. What is your take?
Good evening, parliamentarians. I'm sorry for coming up with it. It was due to network failure. This case of Blessing is quite unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. That she could be caught in this kind of doping. I think athletes should be educated, and they should be educated properly about the effect of doping and the effect of doping on Nigerian nation. The stories we're having and we are reading about her in recent times is very negative, and it's not good for this country. So we should curb it, we should prevent it, we should make sure our athletes are well educated and well tutored not to go into doping, and the effect of doping, they should understand them. This is not good enough, and whatever happens, we should take the lessons and we should let every other athlete um, that we are grooming, that they should know that doping is off it.
Thank you for your contribution, Waid, and we accept your apologies for coming on board late. Now, Satish, being an international sports journalist, why do you think athletes, especially those who do track and field, get caught in such messy situations? Very topmost athletes. The Blessings case is just one of them. But I'm sure, have heard about the cycling world champion, winner of Tour de France 7 times. You've heard of the Canadian sprinters. What pushes them to do that kind of a thing?
One, they want to win. Two, they think everybody else is doing it, and if they don't do it, they're going to be at a disadvantage. And three, the rewards of winning. It's so high that you have to set standards equally high. You also have to hold the governing bodies responsible for it. To give a very good example, when the Berlin Wall came down, you finally found out what the program was in East German sport. What they were basically doing was they had worked out that they had a bunch of very talented athletes and sports people, and to make it work, they had to win. They had to prove that they were the best in the world. And to do that, they were enhanced to do it. So they had a program whereby they were testing their athletes, but they weren't testing them to find out if they were using any banned substances. They were testing them to find out if they were going to get caught at a major championship. That's why they managed to avoid being caught out until really the fall of the Berlin Wall. Then you started seeing East German athletes getting caught. So one of the things that needs to be done is there should be sanctions on the governing bodies of the national the countries. If their athletes, a number of them, fail drug tests and they do it repeatedly, then there should be a sanction on the country as well. That's one of the problems. They don't do that. So because they don't do that, they don't look at the what the athletes are doing. They don't talk to them. They don't help them to develop into the best athletes that they can be without the temptation of using these illicit substances. I think you have to talk about WADA, you have to talk about the Olympic organizations and the various governing bodies throughout sports and say, what are you going to do about this? Because otherwise, it's going to happen again and again and again. And that's really the problem with it. There is no concerted ideas, or not ideas, there is no program that looks at all these sports, brings them together, and basically says, this is what we're going to do to put a stop to this.
Thank you, Satish. Now, away from this rather saddening story of Blessing, let's look at efforts that have been made to produce new blessings. Our own parliamentarian, Eni, has been working very, very hard at the Teslim Balogun Stadium, trying to bring primary school athletes, selected primary school athletes, to the fore. And that has been going on for some 2-3 days now. And we're sure that he is going to share his experiences with us shortly, maybe at the end of the competition. And another parliamentarian, Dr. Kweku Tando, has been very, very busy at Unilag, as athletes have been arriving from various Nigerian universities to participate in the very next edition of the Nuga Games, which will start in Lagos, I believe, this weekend. What would you say are the prospects for such kind of events, Mr. Speaker?
Well, as for Nuga Games, well, nothing different from what we have had before, because we haven't had the tertiary institutions, particularly the universities, actually commit to making sure that sports becomes an integral part or a co-curricular activity within their universities. And they take sports as seriously as, the more developed cultures do. Our universities don't do that. So we cannot plant an apple and expect to reap yams, that kind of a thing. So I don't see anything really coming out of this NUGA beyond the festivities that we are going to have. Thousands of students will come together, they will hold their races, and after that, everybody will go away, and that's it. But we see greater hope in what NA has started. It's not just for primary schools, for primary and secondary schools. My school was supposed to participate actually, but for some reason we couldn't. But he had just planted a seed. And because of the man that we know, somebody who is very passionate and very qualified in what he does in sports development, I think that that is the way to go. In the next 3, 4, 5 years, that program will start to yield dividends in Nigerian sports. I can say that without any question.
Very well. Waidi, we have advocated on the parliament the need to go back to the grassroots, go back to the drawing boards. Is that what NA is doing?
Yes, that's exactly what NA is doing, and that's what I want to ask every athlete, every sportsman to emulate NA for what he's doing. For the NUGA games, I don't see any impact the NUGA is making in Nigerian sports generally. I remember in the past, I was NUGA champion in 1978 at Unilag, the same Unilag that is hosting this year. Hosted the NUGA games that year, 1978, and then since then we haven't seen impact of the Nigerian universities in Nigerian sports. Like Big Sheikh said, it is festivities that we're just witnessing, and that's why I particularly enjoy and like the program NA is doing now. So every other person should emulate what the NA is doing, and then the history of sports in Nigeria will be better written.
Well, thank you, Wade. This is food for thought for people in the Nigerian School Sports Federation. One wishes that they would be cooperating with what NA is doing. And for NUGA, what would I say? NUGA produced Shegun Odegwame's bosom pali, Adoke Amesimaka. Since then, we have not, I've just picked football as an example. We have not picked any footballer of renown out of the NUGA system to represent Nigeria. That speaks volumes. I think the authorities, perhaps the ministers of education and sports, need to collaborate and see if they can fashion out a program whereby sportsmen and women can be, identified and given the treatment that they desire to train hard and study hard and come out to, do the nation proud. That has been done in the past. There's no reason why it cannot be done now.
And don't mention only Adoke. There's Martin Eyo. There's Patrick Ekeji. There's Frank Mwachi. There's a headmaster. There's Adegoke, Adelabu. There are so many of them that came through the university system and that became national team players. These days, it doesn't happen anymore. It's not just Adoke.
Well, I just took the one at the apex.
There's a that due of athletics fame.
Yeah, I was going to ask Satish, from the international points of view, where you are, how do tertiary institutions contribute to the sporting personnel of their various countries?
Well, they have various programs and like various governing bodies. Like, for example, FIFA has a number of programs, CAF has a number of programs, UEFA has a number of programs, and so do the FA, for example. So all these sports go into the grassroots, and governing bodies go into the grassroots, and they look to develop programs, and they also look to have links to other countries and help them with their development. The real problem isn't that whether you have enough resources. It's how you use your resources and how you develop the various programs to build the future. One of the big problems is you never have patience. You have, like, you would have in various teams. These teams, they have their academies, they have their youth programs, but they have this idea that they're going to deliver immediately. Well, it very, very rarely happens. The end result is you sack the coach. Then you have to start from scratch because the new coach has a totally different mindset and a totally different way of going about things. And all the work you've done in your long term and medium term planning to develop into the successful institution that you want to be, it's out of the window. The end result is you keep getting a short term plan. Your short term plan fails, you start another short term plan. The next short term plan fails, you start another short term plan. You never actually get to the middle term, the medium term, and the long term. And that's where success is. So until you get rid of this idea of instant gratification and actually understand it's not going to happen, or very, very rarely will instant gratification happen. And the end result is you will actually get no gratification whatsoever. So, what I would say is you have to have patience. And if that isn't part of your planning, then your planning is faulty.
Thank you for those words of wisdom, Satish. It's about time that we go, and so I'll look onto the Maverick to drop our motion for this week. Onome, are you back?
Yes, I've been here, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, you give us your motion.
Move the motion.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I hereby move a motion that next week, Thursday, we'll have a more interesting, intriguing deliberation to move Nigerian African sports forward. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe you forgot that by next week, Thursday, we will just be a few days to go before the Ghana-Nigeria match.
I'll be in Accra, Mr. Speaker. I'll be lounging in Accra. We'll be there sprinkling water.
The whole world will be interested to know the situation
water.
to know the situation and what we are planning to do. So I would change that your motion to say all focus will be on the Nigeria-Ghana match next week. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against say nay. The ayes have it.
We have it.
Good night, everybody.